"You framed the wrong woman, Vanessa." The bride's smile vanished. 300 wedding guests turned toward the back row, where a stranger had just risen from his seat. Beside him stood Hannah Miller, the housemaid everyone believed had stolen thousands of dollars from the Whitfield family's charitable trust. Vanessa pointed at Hannah's pink uniform and shouted, "She had the money. The files were inside her locker." The stranger stepped into the aisle and held up a small hard drive. "I know," he said, "because 3 years ago, you planted the same evidence in my office 2 weeks before our wedding." Daniel Whitfield stared at the woman standing beside him in a white bridal gown. Until that moment, he had believed Hannah was either a loyal employee or a desperate thief. He had never considered that she might be both the target of the crime and the only person brave enough to stop it. But how had Vanessa copied Hannah's identity? Why had money been transferred into an account under the maid's name? And why had she chosen a woman already struggling with illness, medical debt, and a body strangers judged before hearing her speak? Before we uncover the truth, subscribe to the channel and stay with us, because the person everyone ignored is about to expose the secret no billionaire could see. Hannah Miller was a 31-year-old American single mother working inside the Whitfield estate near Chicago. Medication for a chronic autoimmune condition had caused severe weight gain, making her an easy target for cruel jokes and quiet judgment. Vanessa believed that made Hannah perfect. A sick housemaid with unpaid bills would look guilty before she ever opened her mouth. What Vanessa did not know was that Hannah had overheard one sentence the night before the wedding. "If anything goes wrong, every piece of evidence will lead to the maid." And by the time Hannah understood what those words meant, the trap had already closed around her. By the time Hannah understood that the warning had been about her, the trap was already moving. 19 hours before the wedding, the Whitfield estate was still awake. Florists carried white roses through the foyer. Caterers rolled carts toward the ballroom. Outside, workers tested the garden lights for Daniel Whitfield and Vanessa Cole's wedding. Hannah stood outside Daniel's study carrying a useless tray. Her hand trembled. The medication she took for her autoimmune condition often made her joints ache, but that was not why the glasses rattled. For 3 days, she had replayed the same conversation in her head. In every version, she lost something. If Daniel did not believe her, Vanessa could have her fired before sunrise. Hannah would lose her paycheck, her health insurance, and the income supporting her 10-year-old son, Owen. Their hospital bills were already overdue. She almost turned away. Then she remembered the night Owen's fever reached 104 degrees. Daniel had found her crying beside the service entrance, driven them to the hospital, paid the bill, and never mentioned it again. Hannah knocked. "Come in." Daniel sat behind a walnut desk, his tie loosened and his jacket hanging over a chair. He was staring at a photograph of his late mother, Evelyn, taken years before her final illness. He looked up. "Hannah, is something wrong?" She entered and closed the door. "I heard something 3 nights ago," she said. "I told myself it was none of my business, but I can't let you get married tomorrow without telling you." The fatigue left Daniel's face. "Tell me exactly what you heard." Hannah set down the tray. Ms. Cole was in the dressing room, speaking to someone named Sandra. She said the wedding would give her access to an account. Then she said that if anything went wrong, every piece of evidence would lead to the maid. Daniel did not move. Those were her exact words? Yes? Did she say your name? No. That answer made the silence worse. She also mentioned transfers, Hannah continued. Small ones. She said they were too low to attract attention. Daniel studied her face. Hannah knew what he saw. A housemaid in a pale pink uniform, heavier because years of treatment had changed her body, visibly nervous and deeply in debt. Vanessa had turned those facts into a story others could believe. "Why are you telling me now?" Daniel asked. "Because I kept hoping I misunderstood, and because you helped my son when you had nothing to gain from it." Hannah swallowed. "I would rather lose my job tonight than let you discover the truth too late." Something shifted in Daniel's expression. He unlocked a drawer and removed a folder containing statements from the Evelyn Whitfield Children's Trust, the fund his mother had created for a pediatric wing in Chicago. "I noticed irregular transfers last month," he admitted. A few $1,000s at a time, moving through administrative accounts. My attorney said it could be routine, but you didn't believe that. I wanted to. He turned the pages toward her. Hannah knew little about finance, but she understood patterns. Years of tracking medicine, bills, and supplies had made details impossible to ignore. She pointed to 3 transactions. These happened late at night. Daniel followed her finger. And always when the house was full, she added. The charity dinner, your sister's birthday, the engagement party, events when dozens of employees and vendors had access to the estate. Daniel rose and walked to the window. Below, headlights swept across the side drive. A black sedan stopped near the service entrance. That door is closed tonight, Hannah said. A man in a dark jacket stepped from the car, looked around, and entered a code into the keypad. The door unlocked. Daniel crossed to the security monitor beside the bookcase and opened the access log. Then he froze. Hannah moved closer. The screen showed the service door, the exact time, and the employee credential used to open it. Hannah Miller. She stared at her own name. That's impossible, she whispered. My card is in my pocket. She pulled it out and placed it on the desk. Daniel looked from the card to the screen. Another alert appeared. The same credential had been used twice during the previous month. Once while Hannah was at the hospital with Owen, and once on a Sunday she had never worked. Someone copied your access, Daniel said. Hannah felt the room tilt. The conversation she had overheard no longer sounded like a warning. It sounded like a completed plan. Daniel grabbed his jacket. Stay close to me. They stepped into the dim hallway as a floorboard creaked around the corner. Neither saw the shadow move away, but on the monitor behind them, a second message flashed beneath Hannah's name. Authorized access. Financial archive. And the financial archive was the one room Hannah had never been allowed to enter. The alert meant someone had done more than copy Hannah's access card. They had used her identity to enter a room she had never been allowed to see. Daniel led her through the east corridor, away from the marble floors and chandeliers, into the narrow service wing. The music from the rehearsal dinner faded behind them until only the ventilation system and their footsteps remained. Which way reaches the financial archive without crossing the main hall? He asked. Past the wine cellar, there's an old storage room near the loading entrance. At the bottom of the stairs, the wine cellar door stood partly open. That is always locked after inventory, Hannah whispered. Daniel pushed it wider. Rows of bottles disappeared into the dim room. Near the far wall, a heavy rack had been pulled forward, revealing a passage Hannah had never known existed. A shadow moved behind it. Stop, Daniel ordered. A young man in a dark jacket stepped into view. For 1 second, he stared at them as if deciding whether to explain himself. Then he ran. He slipped through another passage and escaped through the loading entrance. By the time Daniel reached the driveway, the black sedan was already speeding toward the gate. Something lay near the open door. A gray work glove. Hannah's name was written across the label. That's mine, she said. I lost a pair last week. A voice came from behind them. Then someone knew no one would question why one was missing. Grace Whitfield stood in the doorway, still wearing her dark green rehearsal dress. Daniel's younger sister stared at the glove. How much did you hear? Daniel asked. Enough to know the wedding is no longer the biggest problem in this house. This does not concern you. It does if someone is using an employee's identity to enter Mom's financial archive. Grace had worked in financial compliance for 6 years. She photographed the glove without touching it, then ordered everyone away from the area until security could document it. Hannah noticed that Grace did not ask whether the glove proved her guilt. She asked how it had been placed there. Inside the hidden room were old cabinets, archived contracts, and a dust-covered desk. One cabinet stood open. Several folders had been removed. Daniel read the labels aloud. Trust records, employee credentials, access card duplication forms. The last folder was empty. Grace's expression hardened. Someone came here for the paperwork that could prove Hannah's badge was copied. Daniel called security and sealed the lower level. By the time they returned upstairs, the estate still looked festive, but guards had begun checking doors and recording everyone who left. Vanessa waited at the top of the stairs in an ivory dress, holding champagne. Daniel, where have you been? Everyone is asking for you. There was a security breach. Her eyes moved to Hannah. Was anything stolen? Daniel paused. Why would you assume that? People do not sneak into restricted rooms to admire them. She touched his arm. Let security handle it. You have not slept properly in days. And please do not frighten Hannah. She already has enough problems. Hannah felt cold. Daniel had never said whose credential had been used. Grace heard it too. Why did you mention Hannah? Vanessa blinked. Because she is standing here looking terrified. It was a reasonable answer, but too quick. Before walking away, Vanessa gave Hannah a brief look that contained no fear, only calculation. Upstairs, Vanessa locked the bridal suite door and called Sandra. She talked to him, Vanessa said. How much does he know? Not enough, but they found the copied access. Then we move now. Vanessa watched herself in the mirror. Use the backup account. Put the drive in her locker and the cash under her winter coat. What about the messages? Send them from the disposable phone. Make it look as if she has been blackmailing me. And the signature. I photographed her medical forms in March. Use the consent page. Sandra hesitated. If federal investigators get involved, they won't. By morning, Daniel will see a sick employee with debt, stolen files, and money in her name. He will want the scandal contained before the ceremony. Vanessa smiled at her reflection. People always believe what they already expect. In the staff room, Hannah opened her locker while Grace watched. Her uniform, medication, and Owen's photograph remained in place. Nothing appeared disturbed. Who can enter this room? Grace asked. Housekeeping, kitchen staff, security, and event contractors. Has Vanessa ever been here? Hannah remembered something. 3 months ago, she said she was updating employee benefits. She asked us for tax forms, insurance records, emergency contacts, and copies of our IDs. Grace turned toward Daniel. I never approved that, he said. Hannah's folder had contained her social security number, address, bank details, medical records, and signature. Vanessa had not needed to break into her life. Hannah had handed her everything. Grace called Priya Shah, a former colleague who now conducted private financial investigations. I need everything on Vanessa Cole before morning, Grace said. Aliases, lawsuits, old addresses, former engagements, anything that does not fit. Daniel looked at her. You have wanted to investigate Vanessa for a long time. I have waited for you to accept what I found. Before he could answer, Vanessa entered. I was told you were all down here. Daniel, the guests are noticing. He held up a trust statement. Did you collect private records from my employees? For the insurance update, I thought your assistant had approved it. She knew nothing about it. Vanessa's face softened into wounded confusion. Then I misunderstood. I was trying to help. Grace asked. Who is Sandra? A wedding consultant. And what account were you discussing with her? A vendor account. Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. I cannot believe I am being interrogated the night before my wedding because an employee listened outside a door. I was cleaning the hall, Hannah said. I did not follow you. Vanessa looked at her with false concern. Hannah, you have been under terrible stress. Your son's bills, your treatment, all these extra shifts. Is it possible you heard only part of the conversation? The cruelty was hidden inside sympathy. Daniel stepped forward. Do not use her illness to discredit her. I was trying to protect her. Then leave while we determine who used her name. Vanessa nodded. As she passed Hannah, she whispered, You should have kept walking. Hannah immediately repeated the threat to Daniel and Grace. Security reviewed the access logs. Hannah's credential had entered restricted rooms 4 times in 6 weeks. On 2 occasions, cameras showed a figure in a pink housekeeping uniform. The face was hidden, but the woman's build resembled Hannah's. In one recording, the figure limped. Hannah's medication sometimes caused swelling in her left knee. Someone had studied her closely enough to imitate even that. The original video files contained missing minutes and altered timestamps. That proves manipulation, Grace said. Only if we can identify who changed them, Daniel replied. At 2:14 a.m., the estate attorney called. A bank had discovered an account opened online in Hannah Miller's name. Over 2 months, $73,000 had passed through it in small transfers connected to the Evelyn Whitfield Children's Trust. I have never seen that account, Hannah said. It had been opened using her social security number, driver's license, address, and digital signature, all information from the benefits folder. Daniel ordered the account frozen. Minutes later, security found a disposable phone behind a cleaning cart. It contained messages sent to Vanessa, "Pay me before the wedding. I know where the trust money went. Give me $250,000 or Daniel learns everything." The sender was saved as Hannah. Grace checked the dates. The messages had been sent while Hannah was working inside the estate, making location records useless. This was built around her schedule, Grace said. Whoever did this knew exactly where she would be. Near dawn, Daniel ordered every employee locker searched in the presence of security and the estate attorney. He began with office staff and ended with housekeeping, so no one could say Hannah had been singled out. Vanessa appeared in the doorway wearing a white robe. "What is happening?" "We are documenting everything," Daniel said. The first lockers contained uniforms, shoes, food containers, and personal belongings. Then security opened Hannah's locker. Her winter coat hung where she had left it, but one pocket sagged under a heavy weight. The guard removed 6 bundles of cash. $48,000. Hannah stepped forward. That was not there earlier. Taped behind the locker panel was a flash drive. Inside her medication bag, security found a duplicate access card and a transfer authorization bearing her signature. Vanessa covered her mouth. "Oh my God!" She moved toward Daniel, but he did not reach for her. Hannah looked around the room. People who had eaten lunch with her and asked about Owen now avoided her eyes. Grace said, "No one assumes guilt until every item is examined." But the attorney's expression had already changed. He no longer looked at Hannah as a witness, he looked at her as a legal threat. Security connected the flash drive to an isolated laptop. Folders appeared, trust statements, transfer schedules, staff access maps, copies of Daniel's signature and photographs of the hidden archive. The first document opened automatically. It listed every missing payment, every shell company, and every date the money had moved. At the top, beneath "Created by," appeared one name, Hannah Miller. Daniel scrolled to the final line. "After the wedding, transfer the remaining balance." No one spoke. From the doorway, Vanessa watched Hannah with tears in her eyes. Yet beneath the performance, Hannah caught the smallest trace of satisfaction. The evidence had not merely been planted to make her look guilty, it had been designed to make the truth sound impossible. The evidence had been arranged so perfectly that Hannah's innocence now sounded less believable than the accusation against her. By sunrise, 2 Lake Forest police officers were inside the staff room. Wedding flowers still moved through the house, but the employees had stopped talking. Everyone watched as an officer photographed the cash, the flash drive, and the forged authorization found in Hannah's locker. Hannah stood beside the metal bench with her hands clasped in front of her. Any sudden movement could be remembered as panic. Any tear could be called guilt. "Who else could open this locker?" an officer asked. "Anyone with the staff master key," Hannah answered. "Housekeeping supervisors, security, and management." Vanessa entered wearing a cream robe. "Please don't handcuff her in front of everyone," she said softly. "Her son may hear about this." To the police, she sounded compassionate. To Hannah, it was theater. Vanessa was already deciding how the story would be told. The detective asked about Hannah's medical bills, overdue payments, and Owen's hospital expenses. Each private hardship was reshaped into motive. "Yes, I need money," Hannah said. "That does not make me a thief." A kitchen worker lowered her eyes. Someone whispered that Hannah often requested extra shifts. Yesterday, that had meant she was hard-working. Today, it meant she was desperate. Daniel remained near the doorway. Hannah could see the conflict in him. He knew her. Yet every visible fact pointed in the same direction. When the detective asked to speak with Vanessa alone, she passed close to Hannah in the hall. "You should confess," Vanessa whispered. "They have already decided who you are. You chose me because you thought no one would look past my uniform." Vanessa smiled faintly. "I chose you because people believe what makes sense to them, and when they finally look at you, they won't." The police did not arrest Hannah immediately. The files required forensic examination, and Daniel refused to accuse her before the investigation was complete. But he could not allow her to remain at work while the trust was under review. In his study, he placed her badge on the desk. "I'm suspending you with pay," he said. "This is not a judgment. It will look like one. I need time." Hannah stared at the photograph of his mother. Less than 12 hours earlier, she had entered this room to protect him. Now she was leaving as the person accused of attacking his mother's legacy. "Do you believe me?" she asked. Daniel hesitated. "I believe there are things here that do not make sense. That is not what I asked. I want to believe you." Hannah nodded once. "Then you don't." She picked up her coat and walked out. The estate was already changing for the wedding. White chairs covered the lawn, and crystal glasses stood beneath the reception tent. Hannah crossed the service courtyard in her pink uniform while workers moved aside to let her pass. From an upstairs window, Vanessa watched her leave. At home, Hannah found Owen sitting at the kitchen table with untouched cereal. A neighbor had seen the police cars on the local news. "Mom," he asked, "did you take something?" The question hurt more than the interrogation. Hannah sat across from him, ignoring the pain in her swollen knee. "No." "Then why are they saying you did?" "Because someone worked very hard to make a lie look true." "Will they believe you?" Hannah wanted to promise they would. Instead, she took his hand. "I'm going to give them a reason." After Owen left for school, Hannah spread bills, schedules, hospital receipts, and bank statements across the table. If someone had used her identity, there had to be a mistake, a date, a signature, or a transaction made while she was somewhere else. She checked her banking records and discovered an account she had never opened. $73,000 had moved through it in small transfers. The account used her social security number, address, and details from her employment file. Someone had not guessed her identity. They had copied it. Hannah called Daniel, but his attorney told her to communicate only through legal counsel. Minutes later, a message arrived from an unknown number. "Stop digging. Think about your son." She saved a screenshot and sent it to Grace. At the estate, Grace compared Vanessa's statement with the evidence log. Vanessa had told police that Hannah must have hidden all $48,000 in the locker. The official amount had not yet been announced when she said it. Grace found Daniel in the library. "Did you tell Vanessa how much cash they found?" "No." "Did the police?" They had not finished counting it. Grace placed the statement in front of him. Vanessa had named the exact amount 17 minutes before it appeared in the report. Across the hall, Vanessa laughed with her bridesmaids as though nothing had changed. Grace lowered her voice. She knew the number because she had seen the money before. Daniel looked toward Vanessa's laughter. For the first time, the evidence no longer pointed only at Hannah. It pointed back toward the bride. Vanessa's mistake was small, but it was the first crack in a story designed to look flawless. Grace did not confront her. A direct accusation would only warn Vanessa that they were watching. Instead, she copied the police statement and left the estate through the side entrance. She met Hannah at a 24-hour diner near the highway. Hannah sat in the far corner wearing the same coat she had left the mansion in. Her untouched tea had gone cold. Grace slid the documents across the table. Vanessa knew the exact amount before the police finished counting it. Hannah read the line twice. That proves she saw the money. It proves she knew something she should not have known. It is useful, but not enough to clear you. Everything they have against me is more than enough. Then we break it into dates, locations, and access points. Grace opened her laptop. Together, they built a timeline. The first suspicious transfer had been made at 11:42 p.m. on a Tuesday. Hannah had been in the emergency room with Owen until after 2 in the morning. The hospital had her admission record. The second occurred while she was at a pharmacy across town. Another access entry showed her badge opening the archive while she attended a school meeting with Owen's teacher. "They copied your information," Grace said. "Then they built the crime around your real schedule." Hannah studied the forged authorization. "This signature is mine, but it came from a medical form. I only write the date this way at the clinic." Grace enlarged the image. A faint line remained beneath the signature, as if it had been lifted from another page. 3 months earlier, Vanessa had offered to update the staff benefit files. Hannah had given her copies of insurance forms, her driver's license, tax information, and medical paperwork. Now every page looked like a weapon. "She did not choose you after the money disappeared," Grace said. She chose you before she began moving it, because of the bills. Because of everything she thought people would judge before listening to you. Grace closed the laptop. I owe you an apology. I heard the things Vanessa said about you and pretended they were only rude comments. I did not want another fight with Daniel. You were protecting your relationship with your brother. I was protecting my comfort. Hannah looked at her. Apologies will not keep me out of prison. No, evidence will. At the estate, Daniel faced pressure from the Whitfield Holdings Board. Their concern was not Hannah's innocence. It was the reputation of the trust and the possibility that donors would believe the family had failed to protect money intended for sick children. If this becomes public, one director warned, the hospital may suspend its partnership. Then we find the truth before making a statement, Daniel replied. The truth may already be in that employee's locker, or someone wanted us to believe it was. Vanessa entered carrying coffee and wearing the expression of a concerned fiancé. Daniel, you cannot let this destroy tomorrow. The wedding is not my priority. Canceling now will tell every reporter in Chicago that something is wrong. Something is wrong. She moved closer. Then let the attorneys handle Hannah. You do not have to solve every betrayal personally. Daniel studied her. You knew there were $48,000 in that locker before anyone told you. For 1 second, Vanessa lost control. Then her eyes filled with tears. I heard a guard mention it. Which guard? I do not know. The house was chaotic. I want a name. A woman accessed your mother's trust, and somehow I am being questioned because I remembered a number? Daniel remained silent. Vanessa lowered her voice. Hannah warned you about me. Then evidence appeared connecting her to the theft. Have you considered that she created the warning to make herself look innocent? The idea was cruel, but not impossible. Hannah could have spoken first because she knew an investigation was coming. Vanessa saw doubt enter his face. Do not confuse loyalty with innocence, she said. By noon, a new piece of evidence appeared. An audio recording was sent anonymously to a Chicago news station. The voice sounded like Hannah's. After tomorrow, I want the full amount. I have waited long enough. Within an hour, the clip was online. Headlines described Hannah as a trusted maid who had exploited a billionaire's generosity. Strangers discussed her body, her medical debt, and photographs pulled from old social media pages. Some claimed her illness was an excuse. Others said a woman her size must have lacked discipline in every part of her life. Hannah watched only 30 seconds before turning off her phone. She recognized the words. Months earlier, she had asked payroll for the final portion of an approved advance after 2 delayed payments. Someone had cut the sentence from that conversation and made it sound like blackmail. The lie worked because it used her real voice. Owen came home early after another student showed him the video. Are you going to jail? He asked. Not if I can prove what happened. What if they do not care? Hannah had no answer that would not frighten him. That evening, Daniel arrived at her apartment without calling. He wore no jacket and looked unlike the man who appeared in business magazines. My attorney told me not to contact you, Hannah said. Mine told me the same thing. Then why are you here? Because I heard the recording. I think it was edited. She led him inside. Medicine bottles were organized beside the kitchen wall. Bills were separated into envelopes marked rent, utilities, school, and hospital. A calendar recorded every extra shift Hannah had worked. On the refrigerator was a chart showing small monthly payments to the hospital. Daniel recognized the account number. You have been paying back Owen's emergency bill? A little at a time. I told the hospital not to charge you. I know, but I did not want my son growing up believing help meant we owed someone our silence. Hannah opened a drawer and removed a sealed envelope. Inside was a thank you card Owen had written months earlier. The front showed a crooked drawing of Daniel beside a hospital bed. On the back, Owen had written, "Thank you for helping my mom when she was scared." Daniel sat down slowly. I should have believed you without needing to see this. You should have investigated before allowing everyone to treat my life like proof of a crime. You are right. I was not chosen because I had access. Other employees had more. Vanessa chose me because she believed people would see my body, my medication, and my bills before they saw me. Daniel lowered his eyes. I saw the evidence before I saw what had been done to you. The admission did not repair anything, but it was honest. His phone rang. Grace was calling. Priya Shah had found a 4-year-old fraud investigation in Nevada involving a woman named Diane Kowalski. The case never reached trial because key records disappeared and the main witness withdrew. A photograph from the file looked almost identical to Vanessa. There was another connection. A former fiancé named Caleb Bennett had reported a similar theft 3 years earlier in Wisconsin. Grace had contacted him. Caleb refused to speak. He spent years trying to prove what happened. Grace explained over speakerphone. No one believed him. He lost his company, and every attorney said he looked like an angry man blaming a former fiancé. Does he have evidence? Daniel asked. He says he has nothing that would survive court. Then why is his name still in the file? Because someone wanted him to carry the blame, just as Hannah is carrying it now. The next morning, Hannah received an envelope from Vanessa's attorney. The agreement was simple. Hannah would admit that she had accessed the trust and moved the money alone. In return, Vanessa would ask Daniel not to pursue the most serious charges. A private fund would pay $100,000 toward Owen's education and cover Hannah's medical treatment for 5 years. Hannah read the document once and tore it in half. The attorney remained seated. You should consider your son. I am. If this reaches trial, he may watch his mother go to prison. If I sign, he will spend his life believing I was guilty. People already believe that. Then Vanessa should not need my confession. The attorney's silence confirmed more than his words could have. Before he left, Hannah asked, "Did she tell you to offer exactly $100,000? That is not relevant. It is the amount mentioned in a draft message on the flash drive, a file the police never released." The attorney's face changed. He gathered his briefcase and left without answering. Hannah called Grace immediately. But before Grace could arrive, 2 police cars stopped outside the apartment. A new transfer had been discovered overnight. $220,000 from the Children's Trust into the account opened under Hannah's name. Bank records showed it had been approved from an internet connection assigned to Hannah's building. The officers produced a warrant. Owen stood frozen in the hallway as Hannah turned around and placed her hands behind her back. "Mom?" She looked at him over her shoulder. "Remember what I told you. A lie can look strong and still be a lie." One officer guided her toward the stairs. At the estate, Daniel received a call from Priya as the police car pulled away. "We found another victim," Priya said. "The same false contracts, divided transfers, and planted evidence. Caleb, he still refuses to testify. But we confirmed the identity of the woman he was engaged to." Daniel looked toward the staircase, where Vanessa was directing florists beneath a portrait of his mother. "What name did she use?" Priya paused. "Not Vanessa Cole." Daniel gripped the phone. "And there is something else. Caleb may have the only surviving file that can prove Hannah was framed. But unless he agrees to come forward, she could be charged before your wedding begins." While Hannah waited to learn whether she would be formally charged, the only man who might be able to save her was watching her face on a television in Milwaukee. Caleb Bennett stood alone in the back office of a small accounting firm where he now worked beneath another man's name on the front door. The news anchor described Hannah as a trusted employee accused of stealing from a children's charity. Behind the anchor appeared the name of one shell company connected to the missing money, North Harbor Consulting. Caleb reached for the remote, then stopped. 3 years earlier, the company that emptied his business account had been called Harbor North Advisory. The report displayed part of a message recovered from the phone planted near Hannah's cleaning cart. "After tomorrow, I want the full amount." Caleb sat down. The same sentence had appeared in the evidence used against him. He opened a locked cabinet and removed a worn cardboard box. Inside were bank records, printed emails, canceled checks, and a silver engagement ring he had never managed to throw away. Back then, the woman had called herself Lauren Davis. She entered his life at a charity dinner in Madison, laughed at his worst jokes, remembered the names of his employees, and brought soup to his father during chemotherapy. She learned exactly where Caleb felt most alone. Within 6 months, she lived in his home. Within a year, they were engaged. Lauren never demanded money. She offered to modernize his consulting company. She said a joint investment account would help them prepare for marriage. Caleb signed because he trusted the woman he believed would become his wife. 2 weeks before the wedding, she disappeared. By Monday morning, nearly $600,000 was gone. Contracts carrying Caleb's signature made the transfers look voluntary. False vendor records hidden in his office suggested he had moved the money himself. Police questioned him. His partners removed him. Clients left. Newspapers called him a failed consultant who had invented a runaway fiancée to hide his own fraud. Lauren Davis did not exist. Caleb's father died 8 months later, still uncertain whether his son had told him the truth. That was the wound Caleb had never forgiven. Not the money or the company, but the doubt in his father's eyes. His phone rang. Priya Shah. "I told you I have nothing useful," Caleb said. "You recognize the company name." He remained silent. "Hannah Miller is being held because someone used the same transfer structure and planted records from your case. My case was buried years ago. Then stop calling it only your case." Caleb looked at Hannah's photograph on the television. Commentators were discussing her medical debt, as if illness proved dishonesty. Strangers were using her weight to explain a crime they knew nothing about. Priya continued, "I am not asking you to rescue Daniel Whitfield. I am asking whether you can live with another innocent person, carrying what was done to you." The call ended. Caleb remained beside the window, staring at the rain. In Lake County, Hannah was released on bond after Daniel's attorney guaranteed her appearance. She left the courthouse with an electronic monitor beneath her pant leg while reporters shouted questions about the missing hospital money. Grace waited beside an SUV. "Daniel arranged the bond," she said. "That does not make him my hero." "I did not say it did." When Hannah reached her apartment, Daniel stood in the hallway. "You should not be here," she said. "I needed to see you. You saw me when the police took me away. I know the account was opened before you had access to the trust files. I know the recording was edited. And Vanessa knew details she should not have known. That means you doubt her. It does not mean you trusted me." Daniel accepted the difference. "I failed you. Yes. I should have stopped Vanessa the first time she humiliated you. You heard her joke about my weight at Thanksgiving. I told myself she was careless. She was testing what you would allow." Daniel lowered his eyes. "People like Vanessa begin with small cruelty," Hannah said. "They watch who laughs, who looks away, and who stays silent. That tells them how far they can go. I stayed silent, and she learned from it." Daniel had negotiated billion-dollar deals without losing control of a room. In Hannah's hallway, he had no defense. "I believe you now." "Then help prove it." Belief after someone is destroyed is only sympathy. At the estate, Vanessa stood among wedding planners in the conservatory. The ceremony had been delayed, not canceled. Guests were told a private family matter had changed the schedule. When Daniel returned, she met him near the staircase. "You posted Hannah's bond." "I did. She stole from your mother's trust." "That has not been proven." Vanessa's face tightened. "She warned you about me." Evidence appeared in her locker. Money moved through her account, and you still defend her. "I am defending the truth. You are humiliating me on our wedding day. A woman may go to prison. A woman who manipulated your guilt because you once helped her son." Daniel stepped closer. "Why are you so determined to stop me from asking questions?" Vanessa replaced anger with pain. "Because I spent 18 months proving I was not the woman who betrayed you before. Then one employee tells you a suspicious story and you look at me as if I am dangerous." She knew exactly where to strike. Daniel's last relationship had ended in betrayal, and Vanessa had built their romance around convincing him that suspicion was a weakness. "Continue the wedding," she said. "Let investigators handle Hannah. If she is innocent, they will clear her. But if we cancel, everyone will believe she destroyed us." Daniel removed her hand from his arm. "That frightened employee risked everything to warn me." Upstairs, Grace called Caleb again. This time he answered without speaking. "The false contracts in your case match Hannah's documents," Grace said. "Same margins, same software version, same spelling error. That proves a template was reused. What would prove more? Video." Grace went silent. "My office had an old security system in the records room," Caleb said. "I thought it had stopped working. The hard drive was damaged in a flood." "Do you still have it?" "Yes." "Bring it. I gave the truth to people like you before. They handed it back and told me it was grief. Hannah does not know you exist, Grace said, but the woman who destroyed you chose her because she believed no one would defend someone poor, sick, and easy to judge. If you remain silent, Vanessa will be right. Caleb looked at the cardboard box. An hour later, he carried the damaged drive into a digital forensics lab outside Milwaukee. The technician warned that recovery might fail, but Caleb paid with the last money in his emergency account. Several files opened as broken fragments. Then an image appeared. The date was 2 weeks before Caleb's wedding. The camera faced the records room. Lauren, Vanessa, entered after midnight wearing gloves. Sandra followed her carrying a folder. At first there was only static. Then the technician repaired part of the audio. Put the contracts in his locked cabinet, Vanessa said. The police will believe the person who controls the key, Sandra asked. What if he says you did it? Then he becomes the bitter fiancé who cannot accept that I left him. The image froze, then returned. Next time, choose someone with less power, Sandra said. Vanessa laughed. Next time, I will choose someone nobody wants to believe. Caleb gripped the desk. 3 years earlier, those words had been only a cruel promise. Now, they had a name. Hannah Miller. The technician recovered another folder containing deleted emails. One document was a checklist for creating clean liability. Use real debt to establish motive. Use copied identity to establish access. Use the victim's voice whenever possible. Place evidence where discovery appears accidental. Caleb copied every recovered file onto a new encrypted drive and called Priya. I am coming to Chicago. At the same time, Hannah and Grace examined the forged transfer authorization. Hannah noticed the abbreviation DOB beneath her signature. That came from my clinic paperwork, she said. Vanessa copied more than my name. Grace enlarged the page. A partial medical barcode remained beneath the digital overlay. If they matched it to the original form, they could prove the signature had been stolen from Hannah's records. It was their first independent proof that the authorization had been fabricated. Daniel entered carrying an old photograph Priya had found. It showed Vanessa beside Caleb at a business event in Wisconsin. Her hair was darker, and her name tag read Lauren Davis, but her face was unmistakable. She did this to him too, Hannah said. Almost exactly, Daniel replied, and he kept searching. Will he testify? He is on his way. For the first time since police opened her locker, Hannah allowed herself to breathe. That relief lasted less than a minute. Caleb was driving south on Interstate 94 when his phone lit up. Turnaround. A second message followed. You lost one life because of me. Do not lose another. Caleb checked the rearview mirror. A dark SUV had followed him for the last 12 miles. He tightened his hands on the wheel and continued toward Chicago. Vanessa knew he was coming, and this time, she was not going to rely on planted evidence to stop him. The SUV stayed behind Caleb for another 10 miles, close enough to threaten him, but careful enough not to attract attention. He did not drive toward the Whitfield estate. Instead, he exited near a 24-hour gas station where 2 state police cruisers were parked. The SUV slowed, passed the entrance, and disappeared into the rain. Caleb photographed the warning messages, sent his location to Priya, and placed the encrypted drive inside his coat. 3 years earlier, fear had convinced him that silence might protect what remained of his life. Now silence would send someone else to prison. Priya arranged the meeting in a private room at her Chicago office. Hannah arrived first with Grace. The electronic monitor beneath Hannah's pant leg made a faint shape under her slacks, a reminder that the law still considered her dangerous enough to track. When Caleb entered, Hannah did not thank him. She looked at the drive in his hand. How do I know you are not working with her? You don't, Caleb said. You should ask. Vanessa survived this long because people trusted the version of her they wanted to see. He placed the drive on the table. My name is Caleb Bennett. 3 years ago, she called herself Lauren Davis. She took my company, planted evidence in my office, and made me look like the man who stole the money. Why did you wait until now? Because the last time I told the truth, everyone treated it like revenge. And now, I saw her use the same sentence, companies, and evidence against you. I knew what that room felt like when people looked at you and decided the case was already closed. Hannah's expression barely softened. I don't need a hero. I need something a judge cannot dismiss. That is why I brought the drive. Priya connected it to an isolated computer. The restored footage showed Vanessa entering Caleb's records room, placing false contracts inside a locked cabinet, and discussing the plan with Sandra. Then the repaired audio played. Next time, I will choose someone nobody wants to believe. Hannah stared at the screen. She meant someone like me, she said. Yes, Caleb replied. They compared both cases. The shell companies had different names but shared the same registered agent in Delaware. The forged contracts used the same software and the same misspelling in a hidden template. Transfers were divided below review limits and sent late at night. Both cases used real signatures copied from unrelated forms. Both used statements built from pieces of the victim's voice. Both created motive from private hardship. In Caleb's case, Vanessa had used company debt. In Hannah's, she used medical bills and Owen's hospital expenses. Grace enlarged Hannah's forged authorization. The barcode beneath the signature matches a clinic consent form. Priya checked the metadata. The image was inserted 4 days after Vanessa collected the employee records. That proves she had the source, Daniel said from the doorway. He entered with 2 attorneys and Special Agent Marcus Reed from the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. Hannah's shoulders tightened. Agent Reed placed his credentials on the table. Ms. Miller, we are not here to question you as a suspect. The pattern now connects to investigations in Wisconsin, Nevada, and Florida. Then why am I still wearing this? Hannah asked, touching the monitor beneath her pant leg. Because local charges have not yet been withdrawn. I cannot promise that changes today, but this evidence gives us a path. A path is not freedom. No, Reed said. But it is more than you had yesterday. Daniel looked at Hannah. Caleb's evidence confirms what was done to you. It confirms a pattern, she replied. Vanessa will say the video is old and unrelated to my case. She may be right, Agent Reed said. We need proof tying her directly to the current transfers, the false account, or the evidence in your locker. Caleb sat beside Hannah. She never performs the final step herself. Sandra handles the technical work. Then we make them believe the final step is still necessary, Grace said. Daniel understood. The wedding. Agent Reed nodded. Vanessa believed marriage would give her access to the trust after 90 days. They would let her believe the terms had changed. One attorney produced a false amendment, appearing to grant Daniel's spouse limited signing authority on the day of the ceremony. It controlled nothing, but an embedded tracker would alert investigators if Vanessa photographed or transmitted it. Daniel would leave the amendment where she could see it, then act as if he accepted Hannah's guilt. Hannah looked at him. You will continue the wedding? Only as a controlled operation. To everyone outside this room, I will still be the thief. For a few more hours. You said that before. He did not defend himself. You are right to doubt me, Daniel said. I saw how Vanessa treated you and chose peace over confrontation. When the evidence appeared, I asked you to wait while your name was destroyed. I cannot undo that. I can only stop helping her. If this plan fails, she becomes your wife, and I become the explanation for everything. It will not reach that point. That is not a guarantee. No, Daniel admitted. It is my word, and I know my word is worth less to you now. Caleb turned to Hannah. Do not trust his promise. Trust the recording devices, the federal warrant, and the people watching every account. That was practical enough for her. She agreed. Daniel returned to the estate before dawn. Vanessa was in the bridal suite with her hairdresser, acting as though the delay had been caused by a minor legal emergency. He placed the false amendment in a leather folder on his study desk, then made a phone call where Vanessa could overhear. Yes, Daniel said. Once the ceremony is complete, the revised authority becomes active immediately. He ended the call and found Vanessa in the doorway. You are still here, he said. I came to see whether you needed me. Hannah has been charged. There is nothing more we can do tonight. Vanessa watched his face. Do you believe she acted alone? The evidence says she did. Her shoulders relaxed. I am sorry I doubted you, Washinil said. Vanessa rested a hand against his back. Fear makes people suspicious. After tomorrow, you will never face anything alone again. When Daniel left, Vanessa opened the folder. The tracker activated. In Priya's office, a red alert appeared. She photographed every page, Grace said. A second notification showed the files being sent to an encrypted account. Agent Reed obtained authorization to monitor the receiving device. The message went to Sandra. New authority active after ceremony. Prepare final transfer. They finally had direct contact between Vanessa and her accomplice, but Sandra's location remained hidden. Then Vanessa called Hannah. Agent Reed connected Hannah's phone to the recording system and signaled for everyone to remain silent. "What do you want?" Hannah asked. "To give you one last opportunity. To confess to something you did?" Vanessa laughed. "You still think this is about innocence? What is it about? Who people believe?" Vanessa offered $1 million for a signed confession, a reduced sentence, and a statement claiming Sandra had approached Hannah independently. "You would have enough for Owen, your treatment, and a new life where no one knows your name," Vanessa said. "My son would know my name. He would know you chose him over pride. No, he would learn that truth is something wealthy people can buy from frightened people." Vanessa's voice hardened. "Look at what truth gave you. A monitor around your ankle, reporters outside your home, and strangers laughing at your body." Hannah's fingers tightened, but her voice remained calm. "You chose me because you thought my illness made me weak. I chose you because people see the weight, the uniform, and the unpaid bills before they hear a word you say. By the time you spoke, they had already decided what kind of woman you were." Across the table, Daniel closed his eyes. Hannah replied, "Being judged my whole life taught me to notice what other people miss. That is why I heard you. That is why I saw the pattern. And that is why you are calling instead of celebrating." Silence came from the other end. "You should have remained invisible," Vanessa whispered. She ended the call. Agent Reed saved the recording. That establishes motive and knowledge of the frame, but not the location of the money, Priya said. A new alert appeared. Sandra had scheduled a transfer from the Children's Trust for 11:59 p.m., but the destination was hidden behind a coded beneficiary name. If the ceremony occurred before agents identified the account, Sandra could move millions through several foreign institutions within minutes. Grace searched Vanessa's messages. One phrase appeared repeatedly beside the transfer instructions. "Evelyn's day opens the last door." Evelyn was Daniel's mother, but her birthday, death date, and the date the trust was created produced different codes. They had less than 18 hours to determine which one Sandra intended to use. Hannah returned home under federal protection after sunrise. A plain package waited outside her apartment. There was no postage and no sender. Inside lay her original employee access card, the one she had surrendered to Daniel and which should have remained locked in the estate security office. Beneath it was a handwritten note. "You were supposed to stay invisible." Hannah photographed the package before touching anything else and called Agent Reed. Grace arrived an hour later carrying a navy blue dress. "What is that?" Hannah asked. "What you are wearing to the wedding. I cannot go near the estate under the terms of my release. Those terms are being amended. The FBI wants you there." Hannah looked from the dress to the threatening note. Vanessa had used her illness, her job, and her fear for Owen as proof that she could be controlled. She had built the entire plan on the belief that Hannah would eventually lower her head and disappear. Hannah lifted the dress from the box. "No," she said quietly. "Today she is going to see me." And while the estate prepared for a wedding, the people Vanessa had tried to silence prepared to end it. While the Whitfield estate prepared for a wedding, the people Vanessa had tried to silence entered through 3 different gates. By 11 that morning, more than 300 guests filled the garden overlooking Lake Michigan. White roses framed the aisle. A string quartet played beneath the trees, and crystal glasses caught the sunlight beneath the reception tent. No one knew federal agents were seated among them. Vanessa stood in the bridal suite, wearing a fitted white gown and a calm smile. She believed Hannah was still facing prison. Caleb had been frightened away, and Daniel had finally accepted the evidence. For the first time in weeks, she felt certain she had won. At the back of the garden, Hannah stepped out of Grace's car wearing the navy blue dress. The electronic monitor had been removed after the prosecutor reviewed Caleb's files and the recorded call, but the marks around Hannah's ankle remained. Grace took her arm. "You don't have to prove anything to these people. I'm not here for them." Hannah looked toward the altar. I'm here because she built her plan on my silence. Caleb waited near the last row with the encrypted drive inside his jacket. Priya sat beside him, while Agent Reed and another investigator posed as guests. Daniel stood beneath the floral arch in a black suit. His expression was controlled, but his hands were cold. When Hannah entered the garden, several employees recognized her. Whispers spread through the final rows. Vanessa saw her from the top of the aisle. For half a second, the bride stopped walking. Then she smiled again. The quartet continued as Vanessa approached Daniel. She whispered without moving her lips. Why is she here? Daniel faced forward. You'll understand soon. The officiant began the ceremony. Vanessa spoke about loyalty, trust, and building a life together. Every word sounded perfect because Sandra had helped write the vows from promises used in earlier engagements. Daniel listened without reacting. When the officiant reached the question asking whether anyone knew a reason the marriage should not proceed, Daniel raised his hand. Confused laughter moved through the guests. Yes, Daniel said. I know several. The garden became silent. Vanessa turned toward him. Daniel, what are you doing? He looked at her for a long moment. Diane Kowalski. The color left her face. That isn't funny. Before you called yourself Vanessa Cole, you used the name Lauren Davis in Wisconsin. Before that, you were connected to a fraud case in Nevada. Cameras lifted throughout the crowd. Vanessa forced a laugh. You are listening to a criminal. She turned and pointed directly at Hannah. That woman stole from your mother's trust. The money was in her locker. The files were created under her name. She threatened me for $250,000. For several seconds, every face turned toward Hannah. It was exactly the moment Vanessa had planned. The sick housemaid standing before wealthy strangers, while the beautiful bride accused her. But Hannah did not lower her head. A man rose beside her. You used the same evidence against me. Caleb stepped into the aisle and held up the encrypted drive. My name is Caleb Bennett. 3 years ago, Diane promised to marry me. 2 weeks before our wedding, she emptied my company accounts and planted false contracts in my office. Vanessa's control broke. He is obsessed with me. He has been harassing me for years. Grace stood next. Then perhaps you can explain why the contracts found in Hannah's locker were created from the same hidden template used in Caleb's case. Priya handed a tablet to Daniel. The screen behind the musicians came alive. The recovered security footage showed Vanessa entering Caleb's records room after midnight. Sandra appeared behind her, carrying a folder. The guests watched as the younger Vanessa placed documents inside a locked cabinet. Then her recorded voice filled the garden. Next time, I will choose someone nobody wants to believe. Vanessa looked toward the exits. 2 agents moved into position. Daniel played the call she had made to Hannah. Her voice echoed beneath the white tent. I chose you because people see the weight, the uniform, and the unpaid bills before they hear a word you say. Shock moved through the crowd. Hannah walked to the front. Vanessa stared at her with hatred. You ruined your own life, Hannah said. I only refuse to carry the blame. You think they suddenly respect you? I don't need everyone here to respect me. I needed them to hear the truth. She faced the guests. She studied my illness. She copied my medical records, stole my signature, opened an account in my name, and used my son's hospital bills as a motive. She believed that once she called me desperate, no one would ask who had created the evidence. Vanessa turned to Daniel. Whatever mistakes I made before, I love you. That part was real. Daniel's voice was quiet. A woman you treated as invisible risked her freedom to protect me. You spent 18 months pretending to love me while preparing to steal from sick children. Agent Reed stepped forward and displayed his badge. Diane Kowalski, we need you to come with us regarding an active federal fraud investigation. Vanessa backed away. A bridesmaid began crying. One guest dropped a champagne glass. Phones continued recording as agents reached the altar. Vanessa looked toward Hannah one final time. You think this ends with me? Agent Reed took her arm. Do not say another word. But Vanessa smiled. Sandra still has access. Daniel froze. Vanessa continued before the agents moved her away. The ceremony was only one trigger. At midnight, your mother's trust disappears whether I'm standing here or not. Grace checked the secure banking feed on her phone. A transfer request had appeared. $18.6 million. The destination was hidden behind an encrypted beneficiary code, and the countdown had already begun. The bride had been exposed. The wedding was over. But they had less than 12 hours to save the children's hospital fund. The wedding had collapsed in front of 300 witnesses, but the real battle was now happening on a laptop screen. Daniel, Grace, Hannah, Caleb, Priya, and Agent Reed rushed into the estate's security office while guests were escorted away from the garden. On the main monitor, the transfer request remained active. $18.6 million. The money was scheduled to leave the Evelyn Whitfield Children's Trust at midnight. If it passed through the first account, it could be divided among dozens of foreign institutions within seconds. Priya searched the encrypted beneficiary code. "It is not connected to Vanessa's known companies," she said. Sandra built a separate exit route. Daniel called the bank and demanded that every trust account be frozen. The representative refused. The request had been approved using valid credentials, and the trust agreement required a specific security phrase before an emergency hold could be placed. Daniel entered his mother's birthday. Rejected. He tried the date the hospital wing opened. Rejected. Grace used the day Evelyn died. Rejected. The countdown continued. Hannah stood behind them, replaying the first conversation she had overheard. Vanessa's words had sounded incomplete at the time, but one phrase returned to her now. "Evelyn's day opens the last door. What did your mother call her favorite day?" Hannah asked. Daniel looked at her. "Her birthday." "No, not a date about her. A day that mattered to her." Grace stopped typing. "The first day the pediatric wing accepted patients." Daniel shook his head. "We tried the opening date." "Not the public opening," Hannah said. "The first child treated there." Daniel remembered a photograph in his mother's study. Evelyn was standing beside a little girl wearing a red knit cap. On the back, she had written, "The day this became more than a building." Grace found the hospital record. October 14th, 2012. Daniel entered the date. The system requested a second phrase. Hannah looked at the portrait of Evelyn hanging above the desk. During Owen's hospital stay, Daniel had once told her that his mother ended every speech with the same sentence, "No child should fight alone." Daniel typed it. The screen changed. Emergency hold accepted. The transfer disappeared 11 minutes before midnight. For several seconds, no one moved. Then Grace covered her face and began to cry. Agent Reed's phone rang. Federal officers had tracked Sandra's device to a parking structure at O'Hare International Airport. She was arrested while attempting to board a flight using a false passport. Her laptop contained the original files used to forge Hannah's signature, modify the camera footage, and create the account in her name. By morning, the charges against Hannah were suspended. Within 3 days, they were formally dismissed. The announcement did not erase the humiliation. It did not remove the photographs, comments, or headlines that had already spread across the country. Daniel understood that clearing Hannah privately was not enough when she had been condemned publicly. He held a press conference outside the hospital. Hannah stood beside Grace and Caleb while cameras filled the sidewalk. Daniel did not call the case a misunderstanding. Hannah Miller was targeted because the people responsible believed her job, illness, financial struggles, and appearance would make her easy to blame, he said. "My family and my company failed when we treated manufactured evidence as more valuable than the character of a woman who had already risked everything to warn us." He apologized to Hannah by name. Then he announced that the entire wedding budget, nearly $400,000, would be donated to the pediatric wing Vanessa had attempted to rob. Caleb's old case was reopened. The recovered video and Sandra's computer records proved that the documents found in his office had been planted. His former partners issued a public apology, but Caleb did not return to the company. Instead, he began working with Priya to help other victims whose identities had been used against them. 3 weeks later, Daniel asked Hannah to meet him in the same study where she had first warned him. A folder waited on the desk. Hannah remained standing. "If this is another reward, I do not want it. It is not payment for what you did." Daniel opened the folder. The first document created a full scholarship for Owen, covering tuition, housing, and living expenses at any accredited college he chose to attend. Hannah stared at the page. This is too much. It is security for a child whose mother nearly lost everything because she protected my family. I did not speak because I expected anything. I know. That is why I trust what comes next. The second document described a new foundation supporting domestic workers, caregivers, people living with chronic illnesses, and victims of identity-based financial crimes. Daniel wanted Hannah to serve as its executive director. I clean houses, she said. I have never run a foundation. You managed a household, medical treatment, debt, and a child while people underestimated you every day. You noticed a financial pattern my attorneys missed. You stood across from a woman trying to send you to prison and did not surrender. I do not have the degree your board will expect. I can hire people with degrees. I need someone who understands what it feels like when a powerful person decides your life can be used as evidence against you. Hannah asked for 1 week. She accepted 4 days later. 1 year after the wedding that never happened, the Miller Bennett Foundation opened its first office in Chicago. Daniel had wanted Hannah's name on the building. Hannah insisted Caleb's be included because he had returned to the truth when silence would have been safer. Owen sat in the front row at the opening ceremony wearing his first suit. Grace sat beside Daniel while Caleb stood near the stage. Hannah walked to the microphone. For a long time, I believed people noticed my body before they noticed my voice, she said. Then I learned something more painful. Some people noticed my voice and still decided it did not matter. The room became silent. Vanessa chose me because she believed illness made me weak, debt made me dishonest, and domestic work made me invisible. She was wrong about all three. Hannah looked toward Owen. The truth does not need wealth, beauty, or status. It only needs someone willing to speak and someone willing to listen before it is too late. Daniel wiped his eyes without hiding it. Hannah had entered his life carrying a cleaning tray and fearing that one honest sentence would cost her everything. Instead, that sentence saved a hospital fund, exposed a criminal network, restored Caleb's name, and gave Hannah a future no one had believed she deserved. Sometimes courage does not arrive with power. Sometimes it stands quietly outside a closed door, afraid of what will happen next, and knocks anyway. If Hannah's story reminded you that honesty, dignity, and kindness still matter, subscribe to the channel and join us for more stories about ordinary people whose courage changes everything. If this story was meaningful or useful to you, press 1 in the comments. If it did not connect with you, press 0 and tell us what could have made it better. Your response helps us create stronger stories for you.